No, I mean, but you guys saw it, Wolfgang, no, not Wolfgang Wooster. Fuck. I can't help but get his name out of my head. Raymond Hoser replied to us on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to reply to him so bad.
Yeah. I know. But you can't. It took every bit of strength I have to not reply to him.
Somebody recently signed up for the Patreon when that happened, and they signed up under the name Jack Me Off. And I think it's possible it may be Raymond, because one thing that I didn't mention in that episode is that, like, in his weird crankery of being the sort of like anti-corruption guy, like he used to send like letters to newspapers under the name like Wayne Kerr.
Right.
And wank off and stuff. And there's a radio interview I found with him where he describes like the reason he does that is to like get people's attention. Like for him, it's like a specific strategy where he like floods and he'll send like 100 letters. And all under really weird names to get like noticed by editors or whatever.
I'm just gonna assume it's him.
Almost certainly he's going to spend the $5 to listen to that full episode.
I hope
which
so.
is really funny to me. Yeah.
I hope he like messages us.
I hope he's listening now.
I was suggesting, Raymond, welcome back. I was suggesting like we were throwing around the idea of like getting Ray Hoser and Wolfgang Wooster on the show to like watch the beef. But I think the even better way to do it would be to like invite Wolfgang Wooster on under false pretenses and then sprang Raymond Hoser on him. That would be how we get back into Raymond's good graces. I mean, we may have to, otherwise he may be like mailing us snakes or something.
No, you give Wolfgang Wooster like one of those like tin joke cans, and he opens it up and snakes pop out, and then Ray joins the call and he's like, "Snake Man here, don't you get Wooster?"
Oh, that's really good.
But I can't remember who made the joke. I can't remember who it was that made the joke in the Discord about. And it's so funny. Like, this is us like showing the fucking clip from the Simpsons Australia episode where they're like getting the kicked with the boot. Yeah, like we've made fun of one of their most treasured public figures. So we may have the whole country coming down on that.
You know what I thought to check afterward, I just thought about it the other day. I wonder if like my friend Ralph, who's from Australia, that I did JK I'm Fine with, I wonder if he lives near Raymond Hoser and could like go to one of his snake shows.
He could be our Snake Man correspondent on the ground.
I'm gonna text him and we're
done. Anyway, today we're gonna talk about a slightly different gang of thieves. Joshua
the
Wesley
Catholic Church
and his gang of thieves. So we watched this movie in the tradition that the three of us have done, and watching these weird like right-wing apocalyptic, often religiously themed dystopia future films. And there have been a couple that have come out in the last few years that are now like coronavirus themed. Obviously, right? I mean, obviously, the whole notion of a plague or pandemic has often been the setting for a lot of like apocalyptic films in general, but specifically, the coronavirus thing, because it's been such a politicized, culture war space. There are all these like very particular films. There was a few that we saw just kind of browsing around. A lot of them have the name like Lockdown and the Plandemic obviously is the conspiracy film that we talked about a long time ago. That's more of like a documentary, but there are a few that are like narratives. And we saw the name of this one, which was, God, what the fuck is it called? It's 2025, The World Enslaved by a Virus.
With the German spelling, the German capitalization of the words.
All the nouns are capitalized. And we read the description, and maybe we should read the description for it here if
I have it in my notes if you want me to paste it to you.
Yeah. Here. Or do you want to just you want to just read the description for the film?
You're such a better reader than me.
Okay,
Here, I'll put this in the general channel.
Okay. So here is the description of the film. It's 2025. The world as we have known in 2020 does not exist anymore. The virus has changed the world. Communism is all over the place. A global state developed. Meetings are illegal, traveling is illegal, and Christianity is illegal. So we saw that description, and we were like, done.
That's
sold.
the one. Yeah.
And we watched the trailer, and the trailer was just that text. Say it again.
I didn't watch the trailer, actually.
It's verbatim, that same.
Yeah, that exact thing. So we watched it. It's available for free in a bunch of places. Originally, initially, just from the trailer, we were like, this seems like a pretty low budget thing. Those are usually signals of something that could be quite fun. And oh boy, is it low budget. I think compared to everything we've watched, the closest thing was the Mark of the Beast movie. I forget the name of that. It's the same kind of
vibe.
The one that was
that one was even more. That one was like a fucking like Michael Bay production level compared to this one.
Yes.
It's still better than some movies we've watched, like not for the show, but I'm thinking about that like tiger serpent. You know what I'm talking about? The white tiger snake movie that's made by that lady who makes all her
Diamond Cobra.
Yes.
And whatever. Yeah. It's a step above that. But it was really, really quite bad. And honestly, there was a moment like 20 minutes in where I was like, we might have to pick something else because it was just so fucking boring to watch.
Yeah, it's really, really.
It's just
boring.
a series of monologues from this guy. Like that's it.
Yeah. But it did end up picking up and being a lot of fun. I think towards the end as it got more into some of the actual like plot. There's like 10 minutes of plot.
It's really generous to call it a plot.
Yeah.
Well, the entire, really basically the entire exposition of it, like all of the plot is just driven by, like, the movie is structured by, like, some of the characters basically sitting in a room, talking to each other and like telling us what's happening, and then there'll be like another like brief scene where they're like out in the world doing something, but then like a few minutes later they're back in the room again for another like 10-minute long discussion to kind of like let us know what's going on and what's happened. And that's basically how everything is kind of moved along in the film. It's just a series of discussions between people in a room.
Yeah, and it's the same three rooms. It's the same three rooms in the same outdoor space.
And it's also almost like the same three conversations that they just keep having over and over, because the exposition is just them saying in the most like vague general terms what's going on in the world. Like at no point do you really understand what any of like the government structure is, what like their plan is for spreading their message, all that kind of stuff. But they just keep saying it's like they wrote a script and they kept putting stuff in that were like, we'll go back and we'll add to this later, we'll like explain it more, and then they just never did it.
The script comes across not even as like a first draft, but more as like a sketch.
Yes.
Like, okay, so these are the ideas that we'll put in the movie, but they were never developed upon. Like, there's no clarity to who the evil government is. There's not even really a clarity to like who the heroes are.
Well, they're communists, the government. That we know that.
But yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, the telling thing is, and this kind of was simultaneously very exciting at first, but also did make it very difficult to watch, is the main actors of the film, and who are also, of course, the main producers and stuff of the film, are all quite young and are all German. So it's most of the people in the movie are between the ages of like 18 and 23, and most of them are German, speaking in English. And of course, like, my German is terrible. I couldn't hold a movie for that long, and there's they're fluent in English, but it's a little bit difficult to grasp what's being said.
They do randomly revert to German a few times, like out of nowhere in the middle of the conversation.
There's a few times where they start speaking in German, and the only reason why I'm bringing it up is not that like, it's so challenging to watch a foreign language film, or whatever, something like that, or people with accents. It's that it's clear that they don't feel like super comfortable speaking English a lot of the times. And it affects the performance, where there's a lot of weird, like the performances are, it's sort of like mumblecore. It's like, they just kind of like ramble. There's like, there's no, all the acting is in the same range of like, oh, well, we should go to this place. And actually, you know what's interesting and funny is that I went to this place already. And then we'll go do that. It's like a lot of that. But then,
wow, that's like really funny. And like, I didn't.
Probably my favorite performance is Hunter, because he's like, bro, I love Jesus.
Oh, he's the best one. Yeah, he's the best one. Yeah. Okay. There's one of the things I wanted to point out, which I really, really liked, and you can see it specifically in a few of the actors who are. I'm specifically thinking of like who would like kind of serve as like the main bad guy.
Oh yeah, the police
like basically
chief,
like the chief of police or something, and he's the one that is basically the face of this tyrannical government. And he I think seems obviously like an American, like a native English speaker, but like even his dialogue. In addition to being like very poorly delivered, also strikes me as having been written by somebody whose second language is English. And then he's saying this stuff with his like American accent that sounds as if it was written by a German speaking person.
And he's like visibly inebriated also. Like he's
got mush mouth for sure. And we speculated that could be a boozy thing, or it could be the result of anything else, but he's got a weird cadence that definitely sounds like he's a little fucked up or in recovery or something. But I mean, and before we get into speaking about like the movie proper and actually trying to talk through what are the plot points and the scenes and everything, the first reaction is like, okay, this is a very odd production because it's in English, but it's clearly produced by Germans. But then there's a mix of Germans and what appear to be Americans. Yeah. There's a few scenes that take place outside where you see signage that is German, which implies that it was shot in Germany. And so just watching all of this, we were like, what's going on behind this? So we did a little bit of diving while we were watching the movie and then afterwards into like trying to figure out like who had made this, because it has the vibe of like a student film or something, like a really like an early college or even like high school kind of level production, both in terms of the script and also the look of it and everything. And at the beginning, like the most slick thing is at the very beginning of the movie, there's one like credit thing that's like the Wesley Bros. And it's like, and the two people who seem to be like primarily behind the movie are Joshua Wesley and Simon Wesley, who are brothers. And Joshua stars in the film. I think they both co-wrote it.
Simon, the other one's also in it, right?
He has a smaller part, but he also did all the camera work and shot it, and I think is credited as the director. And so we were looking into it, and there's a couple of other Wesley names that popped up in the thing. And there was like one point in one scene in the movie we were watching it, and we were like, "That's just his mom, right?"
And we
looked it up, and it was his mom. And so we were like, okay, so this is like, we're brothers, we want to make movies, we'll take it, we have the advantage of our immediate network, and as somebody who went to film school and made a lot of films like this, at a similar age,
just like this one.
Yeah, exactly
Same ideology.
Like this one.
Yeah.
It's the thing you do when you're a young person and you want to make movies,
and you want to glorify Jesus.
You rely on your friends and your family, and you kind of pull them in, even if they're not the best performers or whatever. So at first we were like, okay, maybe this is just kind of like a vanity project that they're doing, but it turns out the Wesleys have like a whole fucking bunch of YouTube shit. And they have a YouTube channel. They have several YouTube channels and several websites. And so the main guy, Joshua Wesley, his brother, and then their little sister, Tabitha, who's, I'm not sure if she's in the movie.
I believe she is, yeah.
I mean, she's probably in a bit part, but her, and then Joshua Wesley's wife, or girlfriend maybe at the time and now wife, who's also in the movie as his girlfriend / wife, like all of them together do these like YouTube things that are in, you know, German, that are aimed as a sort of like Christian proselytizing Zoomer, you know, social media project. And so, you know, in looking through that and kind of watching in, and most of that is in German, so it was like kind of hard to watch. I don't speak German well enough to really absorb that much content. And again, you know, most of it is just like what you would imagine Christian Zoomer content to be, right? So the parents are Dr. Stephen Wesley and then Michaela Wesley. Mm-hmm. And Michaela Wesley is also credited as like a co-writer on the film. She's in it. I'm not sure if the dad is. But the two of them were apparently involved, and may still be, it's sort of unclear, but they were involved in some kind of what's called a Catholic lay community in Germany called Gemeinschaft Chara, which is like a sort of, I don't know, like civic religious get-together group that then later like was given some kind of status officially by the Catholic Church, but they're like a lifestyle organization. You know, it's like instead of just going to church on Sundays, it's like, you know, you do churchy stuff all the time, right? You get together with your community and what have you. And so in that capacity, like their kids were all involved in that stuff. So like Joshua Wesley, who again is the star of this movie, and then you know, has the YouTube channel and stuff. He, and I think the daughter as well, were in like the youth band thing attached to this Chara community. So they did like, you know, youth oriented, like, you know, Christian rock music in German, for this community. And at some point, I think they left this community because now they have another website that's Kirche U30, which is Church 30, I guess, in German. But if you go to this, the first thing it says here is it's a mindset. And then as you read through, there's a lot of language here. And again, it's sort of unclear if this is connected to the Chara thing or if it's something else. But the language here seems to be a very concerted effort to rebrand the version of Christianity that they have into the 21st century via the mechanism of like social media, but also like success win mindset stuff.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
And so the dad, Dr. Stephen Wesley, he is like a corporate consultant or something, but now he has his other thing that's called Master Soul, which is like a personalized service where for the low price of 2,400 euros, you get to have like one-on-one Zoom meetings with him where I guess he, you know, does like life coaching with a Christian lens. And then, you know, he also offers this to groups. They founded a company in, I think, 2019 that's called Lifelong, which is like a dating app, like a Christian dating app that's designed around getting, you know, it's like you do a big quiz and they're trying to match you up with like a lifelong partner, right? And in all of the description, again, I had to translate a lot of this from German, so I wish I had like more directly to read from it. But one of their stated goals is they were trying to reduce the global divorce rate by 10%. And that's like one of the goals of this app. And for whatever reason, they founded this company in Washington, in Spokane, Washington, in the United States.
You know, I saw at one point in the film there was a like just in the background in a scene there was a box.
Yes,
like
yes,
an empty box.
Shane
that had
that
like
right away,
yeah. It said it was from Washington State. I don't remember what the city was. It may have been Spokane. But.
Yeah, it's a box from a company called Benkins, which I looked up, and it's an international moving company based out of Washington. So, at some point in 2019...
I was going to say that box is probably because remember you were watching the guy's YouTube channel and that's all filmed in his house and he's American. Yeah. Those were his moving boxes probably.
Yes. So at some point, they founded this new app company in the United States in 2019. And I'm guessing the idea was like, if we're going to found a tech company, we want to be successful. We want to do it, you know, in the like Pacific Northwest, you know, near like Seattle or whatever. San Francisco. Like that, I'm assuming that's the reason why. And so it seems like through that, and maybe through the church group as well, they have like people, then Americans going back and forth between Germany and like Washington. And when I mentioned, there's this sort of like success win corporate consulting mixed with religious stuff. And Carrie, you said, if you look at like the blog on the Church 30 website, there are some really great titles. And so here's one from Stefan Wesley. It's called Jesus, the Master of Resilience. Mm-hmm. And it's a long article, but it has the 7 pillars of resilience: self-confidence, sociability, emotional stability, optimism, realism,
grinding,
action control,
hustle,
analysis, strength. And then it takes like stories from the New Testament, and then, like it explains them through this sort of like corporate self-help kind of logic. That blog post links to another one by Joshua Wesley. 5 interesting facts you didn't know about the devil, which is a great title. There's another one from the mom that's called 5 Things We Can Learn from Starbucks for Children's Services. And it's like, these are all written as these sort of like corporate listicles. And the first one here is Starbucks is not coffee. Starbucks is an attitude towards life.
So true.
And the reason why I'm just going through all of this is like, once I read all of this, it made the movie make so much more sense, because all of this has this, it's like a very vague religious corporate melding that doesn't seem like super coherent, but it mixes this kind of like pure, unfiltered, like, mental positivity. You got to say yes, you got to be productive, you got to be you got to have your life in order, you have to be organized in all these ways, and Christianity then, or like elements sort of a la carte picked from Christianity or incorporated into that.
Right, because they say they don't belong to any denomination too, right? Like it's just their own
that's
thing.
Also says on there. It's like their own thing, and then there's a bunch of things here where it says stuff like, if Jesus was alive today, he'd be an Instagram influencer.
That was my favorite thing that you sent me.
If Jesus was alive today, he'd be on YouTube. And if you go to their YouTube channel, they have like most of their videos have like a couple thousand views. And it seems it is an attempt to do like the lifestyle vlogging influencer stuff, but then mixed with this hustle and grind stuff. And so all of like the bios for everybody in this family, like I almost felt kind of bad, because you can tell like they're in this like very pressured environment to be like, we got to be successful. Like they each have their own webs. There's like 50 websites for all. There's like the family, each of their companies has a specific website. Then their like church thing has a website. Each member of the family has like their own specialty things on their websites, and it's all about like self-promotion and trying to like build themselves up and be like, we're going to be successful, we're going to win or whatever. And then if you look at a lot of their stuff, it's not very successful. I mean, I'm assuming the dad has made some money in corporate consultancy where they can move back and forth between, 2 different countries and sort of like, spend money on, equipment and stuff for their kids, because the kids have like the shit that they're shooting this movie, and there's some behind the scenes footage we saw where they have like actual lights and stuff. They spent like at least a few $1,000s getting that all set up. But I also clicked around. There was like a Kickstarter for another project that was supposed to be like a documentary about missionary work in the Bahamas. The Kickstarter was aimed to get like $30,000, and it got $20 and failed. And there's like a lot of stuff like that. There's like a lot of residue of this, like, like we got to keep going and put everything, first and foremost, at the forefront, like, happiness. And the guy, Joshua Wesley, like, it's so much in the movie, but especially in his YouTube videos, he has like this very eerie hyper positivity to him.
Yeah.
It was very bizarre to watch. He kind of reminded me of like a David Koresh type.
He's got the
Koresh glasses. But he's got this like wide-eyed smile. Like he's always smiling. He's always happy. And far be it from me to say it, if he is legitimately happy or whatever, more for him. But his movie is really bad. Like it's really, really bad. And again, in watching like the behind the scenes teen stuff. There was a bunch of stuff we saw where it's like, they're all, again, they're like 18, 19, 20 years old.
I honestly felt bad after we watched that.
And you can see they're like having such a fun time. It's like we're really trying to put our first movie together. And having gone through that experience myself, I know what that's like. I know what it's like to take little making of behind the scenes videos that, nobody's going to watch, where it's just all of your friends like kind of making dumb jokes or being
they had like a snack
look
table.
at what we're eating for lunch, And so at a certain stage, I may have pulled the plug on all of this, because it's like, I don't want to make fun of, some young people who are trying to do some creative stuff. If it weren't for the fact that the angle of the movie, as like vague and terrible as it is essentially the like insane reactionary myth that like there's a communist one world government trying to suppress Christians specifically, but also like freedom of thought and democracy or whatever, tyrannically, to the point of like killing them.
Right.
And we know this because, several times in the film, like the guy who's like the police chief, who's like the villain, is like, these people are trying, if they think about this too much, they're going to realize how oppressed they are. And we're doing it for their own health and safety, but they're going to long for their rights and freedom. But we're they can't remember their history because we're trying to just destroy their history. And if they remember their history, it's stuff like that, basically. They have to have the villain periodically just say all of this evil stuff
because they're not showing any of it. That's the other thing. There's no this is the exact like thing of like, a show don't tell, where the movie is all just telling you this. Very little in terms of actual plot happens, but let's set it up. Let's try to describe 2025, the world enslaved by a virus. Who wants to take it? Carrie, you were taking notes, so you remember how the movie starts, hopefully.
I would say the beginning of the movie is probably like maybe the most memorable part, so it works that they like kind of bookend it, because it's like the car chase, and he's like being,
there's like
really
the,
cool.
Oh God,
he's being chased by a police car that literally like the front license plate just says police.
Like
on the license plate, and they're like shooting at him out the window as they chase him or something. And he's it's so funny because he's got the David Koresh glasses, but he's also got. Do you remember that old Mike Myers sketch on Saturday Night Live, Sprockets, where he's like the German guy Dieter? He's like doing the West German like television show or whatever. And he's literally the protagonist in this movie is literally like wearing the black turtleneck.
Yes,
like that character.
And that reminded me too what you said about the police thing. What like all the cops have these vests on that say police, and then there's very clearly like a word over that they just put tape over to hide it.
Yeah, they put like electrical tape or gaff tape over the top. So and we were speculating at first that it said campus police. And that it was like a shot on a college. But I'm pretty sure this was just shot in like the company space that their parents own.
And that guy's house, that one guy.
And then like one of theirs like their apartments or houses or whatever. So so there's this like, it starts off with this exciting chase, and you can tell it's exciting based on Joshua Wesley's performance as he's driving.
Riveting.
Really like exciting. And he gets knocked off road by the cops, and they arrest him, and they take him to the interrogation room, and they show the evidence that they have against him. And the evidence that they have is a copy of the Bible and a copy of the German federal Constitution.
It's like that, like from the Patriot Purge movie. It's like that couple in Alaska. Like they took our Constitution and my copy of the Bill of Rights.
And that's when they first also introduced this idea of the like 5 years ago was like the old times, because the cop asked him, where are those books from? Like, where did you get them? And he says very like sharply, like, wouldn't a better question be, when are they from? They're from 5 years ago, before the world ended.
And then he kind of just like takes about 5 minutes to basically just monologue and like explain everything, but also about the books. He's like these books are from a different time when we could go to restaurants and meet our friends.
We could have ice
cream. Go
to
Applebee's without the tyrannical government telling us what to do.
The really funny thing is, like, of course we immediately like looked these people up as soon as we started watching the movie, and like they mentioned multiple times like not being able to go out to like dinner with their friends, not being able to have ice cream specifically in the movie, but the whole time like on their Instagram you could see they have just been going out this whole time. So they're complaining about something that they did not even experience, like, at all.
I mean, I think it's also the restaurant line is really interesting because it reminded me too of the Mark of the Beast movie where, you know, again, they were like sitting outside the Panera Bread or whatever. Like everybody has this, and it's like even in there, because, you know, I can't help but when I'm watching a movie like this, I'm rewriting it in my head.
Sure.
Right. And it's like, if you're going to do there's a tyrannical 1984 authoritarian government, like you show that. You show, you know, the evil government, like Gestapo agents or whatever, you know, like penalizing people, like burning their books, rounding them up, putting them, you know, making them like swear allegiances to things or whatever. And this movie has none of that imagination. The entire scope of the imagination is like, we can't go to restaurants.
Right.
Like that's what the grievance is. Like we can't go to restaurants. And that is, you know, 1984 tyranny. And my other favorite thing about this this little like setup scene, because again, this is what the movie's bookended by, right? Because at the end of the interrogation thing, it goes like 3 months prior, and then you see the story that leads up to him getting arrested. But like in this scene, he like opens up the German Constitution and he says, and it takes him so long to say this, but he says like, every time the government took away one of our rights, I crossed it out in the Constitution and I wrote the date, and then to demonstrate this, he reads one of them, right? And it's not a bad idea from a script perspective, right? To like have, you know, but again, in a tell and not show way, he just reads like 5 of them.
The communist cop is so patient. He's just listening.
And again, like in the 1984 tyrannical communist one world government that they're trying to picture, the cop would just like shoot him. He would like not let him read fucking half of the German Constitution out loud, because he goes like, oh, here's a good one, you know, and then he reads like their equivalent of whatever, the First Amendment, and then he looks up to the cop and he's like, remember that? And then it just cuts to the cop, and then it cuts back to him and he's like, oh, let me find another one, here's another one. It's the lamest kind of grandstanding.
I just had a realization looking at my notes. I put that that book was the German state code from before the global state made the world language English. So I think the point of, you know how we said like they're sometimes speaking in German?
Yes.
Maybe the point is supposed to be that speaking German is like illegal now. But they never say that. But that might be
it's never explicitly made clear, but the implication is, you know, and that's the sum total of like the world building we get, is that what he says. And so there, at some point in 2020, a communist one world government used the virus to impose perpetual lockdowns on everybody, where everybody had to wear the masks, and also it made Christianity illegal.
Yes.
Like that's it. That's like, it. That's what their goals were. So then it goes 3 months prior.
Yep.
And what happens next, Carrie? Because I can barely distinguish scene from scene in this movie.
So let me read my notes really quick. I think this scene is just Roy and then his sister, which we didn't figure out until way later was his sister, and they're just talking.
Yeah, okay, so the main guy's name is Roy. Yeah. It's played by Joshua Wesley, but his name is Roy.
And then Hannah is the sister.
And Roy and Hannah are just talking about how they've been literally hiding for the last 5 years, which they go out all the time, so it's a little bit unclear why they would have been like hiding. And this is just, again, another monologue. Like he's just talking at her for like, it feels like forever.
I wrote a couple. I have some notes too, and I just wrote down a couple lines from this particular scene. Here's one. Again, this just I'm sure was delivered in the dullest, most emotionless way possible. But here's one. He was our brother. He was tortured and killed. We must do something.
Yeah.
And then another line I have here, which I really liked. Remember when we used to see those videos of the Middle East? Who would have thought that 5 years later we'd be in the exact same position?
Right. Right.
I jotted down too, because something we noticed was that like a lot of these are just like first takes. Like they would not redo it if they got a line wrong.
Yeah.
So like in this scene, the other guy Luke comes in and he says, "See, when I sleep, I can't sleep anymore." That was it.
Yeah.
Like just
okay. There's a lot of fumbling. There's a lot of
it also almost just like even seems improvised. Like they just went with like the first take. Yeah. I just don't know.
It feels again like that they sort of sketched out this is what you need to generally communicate communicate, and then you ask like an 18-year-old who doesn't really have acting skills like on the fly to be like, can you just get this idea across? Because all of the lines are delivered literally by saying like, well, actually, it's really interesting because our brother was killed and tortured, remember, by the anti-Christians.
It was crazy.
It's all like that.
That was really awful.
Yeah, that was horrible.
That was bad.
That's so true.
I'm really sad about that.
And so anyway, they're kind of like mulling over in their house or whatever, or their hiding spot about the horrible state of the world, and they get the idea together that they're going to spray paint the fish symbol, the like, Christian fish symbol, and then they go back and forth about that for another 5 minutes, where they're like, "Yeah, that would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
Maybe we can just spray fish." They say is what I wrote down.
Do you want to just? Should we just spray fish?
No, he actually. There's one point where he says, "I have another quote I wrote down here." He says, "I think I have some graffiti back there. We can spray fish."
Yes, yeah. So they go and they get the spray paint, and then they spray the Christian fish symbol all over the place.
It's the first awesome montage of the movie. Just a badass fish
and
spray.
It's the first of several fish spray montages. So they go and they do that. And the funniest part about those scenes is they go outside, and I guess they shot this in like autumn.
Yeah.
And so there's like a bunch of, they're just walking through like a public park, and there's a ton of leaves that have fallen on the ground. And where they're spray painting is often like
leaves,
like areas where like the leaves are. So
or like
when the
tree.
leaves go, the fish symbol won't be there anymore.
And it also counts on people just like wandering around the woods to see it.
Right.
Like you do it in a city. What do you?
The whole idea too was supposed to be like they draw one line, and then to know that there's other people in the area, the other people would draw the other line. But they're doing both lines. They're drawing the whole fish.
Yes.
So. Yeah.
And then like we get some shots where it's like, oh, some people are watching them do this. And one of them turns out to be a cop with the campus police or whatever, taped over. And the cop like shoots at them and goes to chase them down. But then it turns out one of the other people watching them is an American guy.
My favorite guy.
Who we see him like he's like peeking around a tree or something, like watching them, and he's got oh shit, I'm trying to remember. I thought I wrote it down. What was his? Oh, he had a hat that said Special Forces.
Yeah, because he's a Marine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his mask is like like blue with the white star is like on the American flag.
Yeah.
So he like takes down the cop,
knocks his
and then
ass
rescues the two of them, and then they go back to the house, and he's an American. He's played by an American who's also looks 18, 19, 20 years old. But
really good actor. The best one
he's
in the
so
movie.
good, dude.
His backstory is that he's a Marine who stopped being a Marine because his fiance, who was in the army, like pledged allegiance to the world state, and he refused to do it. And there's this one shot.
She even wore a mask.
There's one like sequence in their little dialogue, where like Roy is like kind of awkwardly asking him if he's a Christian,
right?
And then it cuts to the reverse shot, and he has a cross necklace on. And he's like, yeah, I'm a Christian. And he's got like a vaguely kind of American country rural accent.
Yeah.
And, he's got, like, the Marine buzz cut, and he talks about, again, he loved being Marine, but, he wouldn't pledge allegiance to the world state or whatever. And this is the trope that's in a lot of the apocalypse right-wing movies where there's, like, one guy who's, like, the cool operator. One guy who's got, like, the military experience. And typically, in a movie like this, if that's, usually that's the protagonist, as was the case in fucking The Crossroads of Hunter Wild that we watched, right? He's like the badass with like a cool backstory, but also like it's supposed to be an older character. Yeah. It's supposed to be supposed to be like the grizzled old veteran
who was like ready
who's
for
hiding in the woods.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like this guy's if he's a Marine in 2020, his entire fucking time of service was like fucking like playing Halo in an air-conditioned tent in Afghanistan.
Right. I mean, and also just in terms of age, right? it doesn't play because the guy's clearly
he's
20.
so young. Yeah.
So, 5 years ago he would have been 15. But even if you said he was 20, that means he was in the Marines for like a few months or like a year or something. But
he did get kicked out of the Marines somehow because of the New World Order. I don't know.
And if this sounds meandering and stupid, that's because this scene is meandering and stupid.
I have another line that I wrote down here that I'm pretty sure was a direct quote from him. Yeah. It says, "They were going to make us all say the new Constitution out loud and swear to it and stuff."
There's a really good line that I wrote down because it's like Hannah reveals that like her parents killed themselves, and he just goes, I'm so sorry to hear that. Wow. Like,
Sorry that happened to you.
And they just move on immediately.
Yeah, so they go through this whole long scene, which is like, he explains his backstory, and they exchange more about their families. And the end of the scene is, I saw you guys there spraying the fish. That's the Christian symbol, right? And they're like, yeah. And we were hoping to like inspire other Christians. And he's like, yeah, that's such a cool idea. You want to go do it? Yeah. And they're like, yeah. So again, like narrative-wise, they go out, spray the fish sign, get attacked, get rescued, come back, talk to their rescuee, and then go out again to spray more fish signs. That's like 20 minutes.
There is
of the movie right there.
There is one intercut scene, like in between Hunter saving Hannah when she gets shot and doing the tourniquet, and them going back to the house. That's when we first see Layla. It cuts to her like waking up, and she has like her little oatmeal by the window.
Oh yeah.
This is a new character. This is played by Joshua's wife in real life.
But by the way, before we get too far from it though, that scene where they first meet the Marine guy and they're like back at the house talking. At one point in the end of that scene, just like after they've like he's given his whole backstory and they've like realized they're I guess like on the same sort of level ideologically or whatever. Then he's just like, "Can I live with you guys?"
Oh yeah.
Like basically just like apropos of nothing, just like asks if he can live with them, and they're like, "Yeah, sure."
It's also at this point in the movie we were wondering, where is this supposed to be set?
Right.
Because if it's supposed to be set in Germany, why is this like American Marine?
How did he get there? Presumably the government is keeping stuff locked down. There's no travel. It's illegal.
Right. And has he just been like living in the woods for 5 years? Right. And that's why he wants to live with them now? Right, so then we get introduced to Layla.
Yeah.
Which one is this?
That's the one that works like with the cops, and she's like having her little
the blonde one.
Yeah, that's so this
the
is
ringlets. Yeah.
So this is Joshua Wesley's wife in real life, and this is just a short scene, and it's intercut with the scene we were just talking about. And she like is in her kitchen in the morning, and she just like has this like sad little thing of like oatmeal that I guess is supposed to be like we're rationing food or something. She only puts a little bit in the bowl, and she has this note from her mom that says, "Please don't risk your life for people you don't know. You mean too much to me. Love, Mom." And this is just introduced out of really like nowhere. We're like, who is this? And like, why? And it immediately cuts away from that, like back to Hunter and Roy and Hannah, like hanging out. And then we have that whole scene.
And then they go to spray more fishes.
Right. And there's a joke.
The Corona joke. It's really good.
Where Hunter, like, I believe he first asks them if he can tell them a joke. And then he says, "What did Corona do to Jesus?" Nothing.
Right.
And then they all laugh.
And he also tells the fish joke.
That's the joke, guys. Yeah. Oh, what's the fish joke?
What do you call a fish without an eye?
Oh, yeah.
And then they they try to high five, but he's left hanging.
Yeah.
And also intercut right before that is the hacker.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite. Like, literally my favorite scene.
So we get a sequence, and there's a couple of moments, which is again a montage of a hooded figure, in a black hood, sitting in front of a computer desk with two monitors and like a glowing gamer mouse
and a gas mask.
and there's a gas mask on the table, and on the screen we see, just like if you go to like hackertyper.net and you like can click clackety, just like random green text. It's just like, cheap, easy, free hacking looking software thing. And it's all shot in mediums too. There was like one close up in the whole fucking movie. So like when it's cutting it's not like, super close up.
It's not
on
dynamic
typing, super close up on mouse, super close up on computer. It's all just like from behind, shot in these like weird medium shots, but it's like, okay, there's like a hacker in play now. Right. So we'll find out where this is going.
I wrote down in my notes here that this is just like there were so many like cuts back and forth between like different shit that it was just like so confusing and weird. Because again, the hacker thing was like right in between like the fish spray montage, and then after that, the hacker is like watching them walk home. But I did want to read like one quote that I had here from when they're like walking home from the second round of fish spray painting, which is, "We even had Christian movies in 2020," and then right after that, they walk into a tunnel and everything they fucking say is unintelligible. Like you cannot fucking hear anything. They're like laughing, and it's just like they didn't even bother to just like put audio over it in post or whatever. They were just like,
and then they sing "Amazing Grace" off key
for the first time.
Which, by the way, there's a version. I think it's a little later in the movie, but there's a version of "Amazing Grace" that is so good.
Yes.
I had to find it, and I think we should.
Oh,
use
the
it
rap,
as
the rap.
Yeah, we have to use it as the closing.
Yeah, there's
song,
3 Amazing Graces in the movie.
And also there's a part during the fish spray montage where they start doing bird calls for like no fucking reason.
Do Germans not have? Are there not like German Christian hymns? Like
that's the weird thing.
You would think
that's
that like if the evil tyrannical government is like forcing them to speak English, and then like while they're secretly practicing their Christianity, which is also illegal, you would think that they might sing some German Christian songs.
I think the reason why, and and I looked at like again, on their YouTube stuff and some of their like Christian band music stuff. A lot of it is in English, and I think the idea is that it's that stuff is designed around a sort of international proselytizing. It's like it's about like becoming part of a larger digital ecosystem and getting your stuff out there, and I think that's what they have in their repertoire. That's why they sang it. It's just like they meander around. We see like the hackers looking at them from like their house, and then at some point the hacker shows up.
She says, "I am Holly."
Immediately identifies herself as a hacker.
Yeah, she's like, I'm the hacker.
She says, "I am what you might call a hacker."
Yes, she does.
And then she's like, and by the way, so what I mean by she shows up, she like knocks on their door.
Literally, yeah.
And
of
they
their
answer
safe
the
house
door,
that's secret.
And she's like, and they're like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "I'm a hacker." And she's like, "I hacked to like find you guys." And at this point, I was like, "What did she hack?"
We didn't
They're not
mention
using digital anything.
The hacking that she's referencing.
On what you might call a hacker. No, and then they're like, at one point, like, go ahead.
I was going to say, we didn't mention, like, before this, like, the hacking that she's referencing is that she was literally just Googling Jesus. That was it.
Yeah, because she sees the fish symbol. And so then she Googles the fish symbol, and she goes on, like, Wikipedia, and she opens, like, the Wikipedia page for Christianity.
She's, like, highlighting salvation.
And then she's, like, highlighting, like, like, salvation through, whatever. So that's her hacking, and she, like, Googles it looks at a Google image search of the Christian fish thing. So she shows up and she's like, "I'm not a Christian, but I do believe in freedom of choice, so I want to join your group." And, I took that moment to mean like, again, it's very bad writing, but the idea is like, hey, it's not just Christians who are suffering right now, it's everybody. But that's totally undercut by then fucking in the third act of the movie, that character converts to Christianity.
Right.
Like that's the whole point, right? Is that it really is all about that. But anyway, what else is happening at this point? There's like shots of the police station.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Layla at this point has already stolen some documents for the first time. We just don't know what they are yet.
Right. So in what looks like, again, like a open-ended rec room.
It's like a warehouse or something.
It's probably like a common space in like a block of condos or whatever, or like a bare office space.
Right.
Where they have like a bunch of like, those plastic like long like catering tables set up with like
laptops,
just like black stuff draped over it. She's sitting there and she's like working for the police, and they're handing her like manila folders that have written on it like lists of Christians to be persecuted.
Here's the new list of Christians to kill.
And she's like secretly taking out some of the files, but later there's a scene where she goes to the actual like computer data bank.
She's like in a closet.
And my favorite part about this is, first of all, when she sits down at like the computer data bank, you can see that recognizable gaming mouse.
It's the same.
So they just reused the same computer that the hacker was using. And at that point, it was like, oh, that's Josh's gaming computer.
Yeah, that's just his computer that he brought with him.
That's his PC that he built. And she had on the two monitors. There's two Word documents open.
Yep. She's deleting the files of the secret Christians.
Yeah, and on one of them it just says Christian conspiracy.
Yep. Yep.
And the other one is a list of names. And Carrie, did you write down what it said?
Oh,
on
I
Christian
did.
Conspiracy?
Hold on, let me find it because I think it was like a little bit later.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually, even though we went back to it, I ended up not writing it down because I wrote down the Christian conspiracy document adds like literally nothing. Like it's like it's the same like muddled stuff because like intercut with this is like them then talking to the hacker and the hacker being like, I can hack pretty much anybody. Anytime that I want, even the police.
What kind of stuff can you? Like what? Yeah, like what kind of stuff can you hack? Oh, I can hack anything. Like even the police. Yeah, it's not that.
It might take an hour or two, but I can do it. And that's when they detail their plan. And like the thing here is you could see it both in the Christian conspiracy document and in this like long scene where they're detailing their plans. They just have like no idea how any of this would be organized on the government side or like on like the activist side. They're just like saying the most general
There's
shit.
There's no imagination about what it would be to be an underground movement.
Yeah.
What the cops would be doing to try to track them down. Because in the document, and so the Christian conspiracy document is supposed to be, this is like the police's intelligence file on them. And it's got 3 sentences. And it's like, who are they? It's like, we don't know exactly who they are, but they're a group of Christians. What are they doing? They're getting their message of Christianity out.
Yep.
How are they doing it? We don't know. Do they have a hacker? Question mark.
Yep.
That's like that.
Is that really what it said?
It said something like that.
So good. That's so good.
Yeah.
I missed that one. I guess I remember because I guess that was on the left monitor, and then on the right monitor, it's like again, it literally says like list of Christians to persecute or something.
And she just deletes the names.
And she just she like selects all and like just deletes it from the Word document.
Yeah, not deleting the files or anything, and not shredding the printed documents that we've seen multiple times now.
And also, look again, as somebody who's done low budget films, like there's some things you can sympathize with, right? There's some things you don't have control over, right? You might not be able to get the best actors, you might not have the best equipment, you might have a limited budget, limited availability of resources in terms of shooting locations, so you dress it up, you do the best that you can. But when it comes to like making documents and stuff, like that's one space where no matter what level of budget you have as a movie, you can spend like an hour or two, like design, for example, or even cheaply find like a free PNG, or not even free PNG or something on the internet of like a stamp, a world government stamp, right? Make like a header for your thing. Or in the case of like the list of names, make a Google Sheets file.
Make
an
a free
Excel
database
file,
or something and delete it. Yeah.
Find a template that has like, again, either a stamp or something that looks like a little bit more involved. This is literally like a double-spaced Word document.
Because they didn't want to have to write down too many names, so they made it like triple spaced. It's so where then she just deletes instead of like deleting cells or whatever. She's just hitting backspace.
It's and like the chief of police comes in later and just like clicks undo and like restores all the
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's really not like I have a USB drive and I'm getting the names off or anything.
There's a really funny moment to me right after like she deletes the fucking list of the secret Christians, and then she leaves the room, and then she's stopped by I don't know the other character's name, the other woman that
Lucinda.
Like, works for the Lucinda or whatever. And
who's the daughter of the chief?
Yeah, who's the daughter? I was unclear about that, but I thought it was the daughter. It was the daughter.
He calls her daughter. Who knows?
Okay. Yeah, who knows? I'm not sure. But anyways, like Layla comes out after deleting the files of the secret Christians or whatever, and then this other woman stops her and is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she's just like, she appeals to the German sense of efficiency.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I was just preparing the new list of Christians to persecute. I thought it would be more efficient if I went ahead and got it out of the way. And then she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I wrote that down too. She says, She's like, don't we all want efficiency?
There's no tension of any like there's no idea of how to build tension, because every time that a problem is introduced, it's solved immediately by a line of dialogue. Like there's like, again, like with the hacking the police, right? Like, oh, can you hack the police? Yeah, sure, no problem.
Easy.
Or ultimately what their goal is now, this like new Christian resistance cell, their goal is to like continue to very vaguely spread the message. And what that translates into, and again, this made sense after researching who the Wesleys are, is they're gonna create like worship videos.
Yes, on burned CDs.
And put them onto burned DVDs, and they have like 2 stacks of those like blank DVDs you can buy, like the small ones, where it's like a pack of like 30 or 40 or something, and they keep picking up those DVDs and stuff, and the hacker is like, oh, I can get those anywhere.
Yeah.
But the what's unclear is, because then at one point they're talking about like, oh, we need to send these to Asia.
Yeah, later
we have our like Asian regiment, and they're like, oh,
point person in Asia.
Right,
yeah, right. I'll go bring these down to Asia.
And to be clear, at no point do they interact with anybody other than like the 5 people who are in the movie. Like that, there's no crowd. There's
around the midpoint, or where the midpoint of a story should be. there's a scene. There's another montage where Joshua, or Roy, I keep calling him Joshua because that's his real fucking name, and he is just playing a version of himself, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
He's like making a speech, and it's cut, and he's making a speech in a couple of different places, and one of them is like an amphitheater that is like a small amphitheater that's in the same public park that they were spray painting the fish.
And there's like 4 people on the steps
and
listening, all with like umbrellas. Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the back of a truck at a farm.
I don't think there's a crowd there at all. I think that's just like empty.
We don't see anybody. I think it's just him there.
It's funny because it took me a minute during that scene to realize that what they were going for was that he's like, speaking in several different places, like during the moment. Because first of all, I thought I was like, this was like just an awful like continuity issue.
Yeah, that's
like,
what I thought.
He's making the same speech in like different places.
Yeah.
I got some good quotes from that. If you want me to read them, or
please.
Yeah. So to the listener, all of these were delivered with just like the utmost passion.
So he says, the world has changed. This is how it starts. The world has changed. We live once more under a dictatorship in communism. And then there's a little more, and then he goes, our colors got dark, whites became gray, mixed by the government. And then like the music swells, and he's like, always remember, we used to fight for other countries. We freed countries from dictators. We organized food and medication. Why did we do that? Because the dignity of man is holy. And he references like being enslaved, but like, to be clear, like nothing is happening to them or anyone else in the movie. Like nothing has been shown of like them being enslaved or having like their rights taken away. They're like outside like all the fucking time, and nothing.
I mean, once you give up the freedom of not having to wear a mask, it's like the next logical step is Christianity is made illegal.
That's right.
I mean, if you don't see that, I don't know how to explain it.
The really interesting thing about that speech is the line you just said, Carrie, where he says we used to like free other countries from dictatorships, because again, he's German, and he's I believe the movie takes place in Germany, so he's speaking from the perspective of a German, but that's kind of more of like an American patriot.
He's talking about Poland.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the other curious thing, right? The other curious thing is that there are a few references like that, and it's like we're once again living under communism, right? Which like we did under Hitler,
right?
There's never a reference to like Nazism, which is something that the weird anti-lockdown people in the U.S. are very happy to make that comparison all the time. Like, what is this, Nazi Germany? There's not that reference there. So a little curious, but yeah, it's like it's really muddled. It's like it seems to be coming from a rhetorical space that's shaped by like the American culture war stuff about the lockdowns, which obviously also is international. It's not exclusively American, but the language specifically about like, you know, freedom of choice and liberty or whatever, and the way that those values are expressed seems to, and in a bunch of, there's like a couple of YouTube videos I found of him where he's wearing like a hoodie that's an American flag print.
Oh, interesting.
So there's something going on there. There's something.
I said to the Discord, him and his wife are Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans also. Like, they watch American football, and like, that's their team.
So there's an interesting kind of national identity thing going on there. But in any case, at one of the meetings, I think in the like children's amphitheater, the Layla is there.
Yes.
And so, you know, at this point, it's like halfway through the movie, and we had guessed, like, oh, I bet you that's his girlfriend in real life. And they started to meet, and I was like, you know, obviously they're going to be, like, you know, a couple in the movie, too. And she walks up to him, and then it cuts to a montage of them walking together with no dialogue, where they're talking, but like music is playing over it. They never share a fucking line of dialogue together, and it's just supposed to be implied, I guess. And, you know, again, it shows like a weird ego thing where it's like, in his mind, he knows that she's his girlfriend, so he feels like, I don't even need to explain that in the movie. That's just obvious. And so, you know, they walk around, and now they're a couple. And so now she, I guess, has more incentive to do it. Again, like, I
guess so.
A smart rewrite would be, she works at the police station. She's secretly a Christian, but she has to do all these anti-Christian things. And maybe she's like ambiguous about it, or she refuses to do some of it. Then she gets involved with this group, and she meets this guy who inspires her, and she decides then to like help them.
We should just
and then
make a
to
movie
start like deleting the names, right?
this.
Like, that would be the way to do it. That would be clear. 2030.
Intercut with this like love montage too is the like shots of the map of Europe with red spreading across it. To imply
Oh yeah, that was my favorite thing. So okay, so this is like, there's a lot of stock footage in this movie, which is again another easy, cheap, you know, low budget thing. You go to Alamy.com or like Getty, whatever, and you buy stock footage of like cities and things. But there's like a couple of graphical things, and the main one is this graphic that's like, you know, it's like a digital 3-dimensional
like something
rendition
that would be in a History Channel special,
right? And of the globe, and then one country turns red. It starts with Germany, and then a neighboring country turns red, and another country turns red. And the idea is that the message is getting out. That's supposed to be the idea. The message is spreading. But what it looks like, because it looks exactly like in the History Channel documentaries about like the Nazi conquest of Europe.
We've spread Christianity to the Sudetenland, the Rhineland.
Oh God.
So, you know, so that's going on. And again, there's like, I think after that is the scene where then they have the DVDs, and he's like, oh, can we bring one to Asia?
Right.
Like, which ones do we want to bring to Asia? And there's another really great sequence where, like, at the beginning of the movie, his brother is with him and his sister, or his friend.
Like
there's like another guy.
It's not his brother, because his family gets killed, is what he says when he comes back.
Yeah, whatever. So there's like a third wheel in the beginning, who's, I believe, played by Joshua Wesley's actual brother.
Yes,
Simon Wesley, the guy who's like behind the camera.
Yeah, that's Simon Wesley.
So then he comes back at a certain point after they've like met some success with spreading their message around. He comes back, and again, he knocks on the door, and he comes in. And the funniest thing too is, Chris, like you were saying, that, you know, how Joshua is dressed in like the black, like, you know, skinny t-shirt and turtleneck for most of the movie. In this scene where, you know, the long lost friend comes back, who's actually Joshua's brother. So they look quite alike, and they're wearing similar glasses. They're wearing the exact same fucking outfit, which is like a black V-neck t-shirt.
It's so good. It's
so he comes back, and he's like, yeah, they killed my family because I was once involved with your guys' group, so I want you to like...
He's wearing a mask, too. That's how immediately when you see him, that's how you know
he's
Yeah.
brainwashed.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want you to stop or whatever. Obviously I'm still Christian, but I'm really nervous about the government, blah, blah, blah. And then he sits him down and he's like, I understand. Josh is like, I understand. I want you and your family to be safe. Here, you should take some DVDs with you. And he like starts going through and this is clearly like one of those moments where it's improv. It's like a 2-minute sequence.
Yeah.
Where it's one shot where they're both just sitting down and he's got like the stack of DVDs. He's like, oh, you should take this one. This is, I think this is, and then he like makes up. He's like, oh, this is one of the worship music ones. Oh, what about this one? Oh, this is another good worship music one. Here, take this. And they're not in like jewel cases or anything.
No, it's just loose CDs.
Blank DVDs. And he's like, smuggle this back across the lines and get to your house.
Well, I love again, like when the friend comes up and he's wearing the mask and he's brainwashed and he's just like, to like show that he's brainwashed. He's like, our system, like the government just, we just have to do exactly what they say, and it's for our own good and safety and health.
Yeah, why don't you guys just relax and go along with it, and we can all be happy.
Again, that would be, you rewrite it. The easy rewrite is like some deeper reveal, some deeper change in the character has occurred. Something like, now that I've been brainwashed, he goes to shake his hand and he notices he's got the mark of the beast on his wrist.
Oh, that would have been good.
Whatever. Anything to kind of elevate the stakes and add some tension, but there's none. And it's like almost clear, or it was super clear to us when we were watching it. It was like, oh, he's obviously going to betray them now. Like that's why he's being reintroduced.
And that's what happens.
He's going to be the Judas figure.
It immediately cuts to the police station again, and it's just like another... I think one of the cops is doing like a monologue about like unity and how that's what the new system is based on, everybody being the same. And they basically say like, we're now aware of like what's going on or whatever with all these Christians spreading their message, and we need to like do something about them.
I don't know if it's that scene or if it's like right before that or somewhere around there where it cuts to the police station. And again, it's just like a vacant hall. It's like, again, like a basement rec room or something.
They're wearing masks. Yeah. By the way, everybody in the police station, these are the only people in the movie that are wearing masks. Every time you see them, they're all wearing masks.
Yes. There's like, they have the long, like party tables set up. And on one of them is like to the side and has like a model train.
Oh yeah, that's a little later, but that's a really good scene.
This is a bit later. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to make 2025 a world enslaved by virus confused or spoiled.
Well, we have the first monologue from like the police captain or whatever, and this is right after the friend Lucas comes. I think his name was Lucas, comes to the door. He's wearing the mask, and we realize he's going to turn on them. And then I believe it's the cop's monologue, right? The one where he's like giving a speech, and then the train thing is a bit later. But the train part was good.
Because like right after the police station, then we have the bonfire, which is where they're singing once again "Amazing Grace." And what we realized is that Hannah is holding the phone in front of him because he doesn't know the chords for "Amazing Grace," and he's reading the chords off of the phone.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed she was holding her phone out weirdly, standing around the thing, and I was like, why is she doing that? And it's like, oh, it's so he can play because he's playing on the guitar, so he can play the chords.
She's scrolling.
Amazing Grace is like 3 fucking chords. It's like just a series of major chords. It must be one of the easiest fucking things to play. I could probably figure it out intuitively on the piano in like 5 minutes. Da, 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 da. That's it.
It's sorry, go ahead.
And then they sing through the whole song, and then he's like, "I'm gonna play another song," and you can see with her thumb, she switches to the other song, and they start playing it, and it's another like worship song in English. This is the scene too where there was an older woman standing there, and I was like, "That's the mom for sure." And I looked it up, and that was her. That's Michaela Wesley.
And that's when the cops show up to break up their illegal meeting around the bonfire, singing "Amazing Grace," and they're all like, everybody who's there is like, "Oh no, Roy, like they can't catch you. Like you specifically, you're so important to our movement. Christianity needs you," and like all this stuff. And it's like, you know, the implication is that he's built like some kind of like movement around him. And there's just like nothing that has shown that at all. And he also has like no charisma as a person. So there's nothing to like support this. But he runs away, and there's that good like drone footage as the rap cover of Amazing Grace plays.
Yeah, that's when we get the rap cover. And there's like a shot at the end of this like little like chase sequence then where he's like on top of like a big hill. It's like it's like a drone, you know, it's like a quadricopter shot, you know, and they got
it's pretty
like
good compared to the rest of the movie.
It's a nice looking shot, and it's a very clearly this is supposed to be, you know, like the sort of biblical story of Christ going to the, you know, whatever, the mountain, and you know, being confronted with his you know, demons and stuff. It's supposed to be like that kind of look. But the funniest thing is when the cops show up, right? And like they arrest everybody. They're like, you know, it's like, you know, it's just like a group of his teenage friends and his like mom, and the cops come over and they're like, "Get down on the ground.
You're under arrest for being Christian."
And they all get on their knees, and then they like put their hands together to pray. And the cop, the head cop there is like, "What are they doing? Like, stop them!" And it's you know, it's hard because you don't want to like necessarily just like mock people for their beliefs or whatever, but it's not the belief
it's not their
structure
beliefs.
thing that makes this funny. It's the persecution complex. It's the idea that like the cops are gonna see them fucking singing Amazing Grace around a bonfire and be like, "That's illegal," you know, like.
Well, it's like I think it maybe even like kind of maybe explains a little bit about why there's just like no sort of like exposition or like plot development or world building in this fucking in this movie. It's because like their fucking like their intended audience has all of this fucking like persecution fantasy in their head already. They don't need any,
right, exactly.
They don't need
they
any
intuitively
story
get it.
World development. Yeah, they get it because this is the stuff that they think about every day already.
I mean, you know, it's bad when in my head as I'm watching this, I'm comparing it unfavorably to like the Crossroads of Hunter Wilde and the 666 movie, where I'm like, those at least had like, you know, they're like when they cut to the police station or whatever, it looked spooky. You know, they spent a little bit on like Party City uniforms and like costume pieces, or like who is the guy who played like fucking Mammon or whatever, the Crossroad of Hunter, you know, the Palpatine, like, I'm going to get Hunter Wilde. Like that was like a little bit more like whatever, you know, there was just more to it. There was more depth to it. More filmmaking, you know,
art. It was artistic.
It was there was more art in that. So anyway, so he runs away, but he's not. This is not when he gets then captured, because then there's like still another siege sequence where they like break into his like house and stuff.
Yeah, right? The next thing is just going back to the police station, and that's when the train scene. And I'll give you my notes on that in case you want to read some quotes from that, Shane. I put it in the general channel.
No, you can walk through it.
Please.
I just love that sequence.
You get so much joy out of it. Please describe it.
Okay, so he goes over and he's like looking at like there's like very clearly in the shot, because there's nothing else set dressing wise in this thing. To be clear, it's not like there's a bunch of clutter. There's a lot of stuff.
It's an empty room.
There's just one antique, like 1/8 huge train set, and he like the police chief is just like staring at it in this like weird medium wide. And he calls over, I believe it's the daughter, his daughter, Lucinda, and he's like, "This, you see this? This is an antique. This is dangerous." And what is the quote here that you have? "These are the things that are made of history. these are what hold people's dreams, and these represent the Christians that I killed. The worst thing is that there's a sort of spark starting in their heads. If that spark gains attention, then they're going to realize people are heavily oppressed, and it's seriously for their good and health that they will long for freedom and their rights. And then that's when the daughter Lucinda comes up with the idea of making Christians like pledge allegiance to the state before God.
And she doesn't say this in a detailed way. She literally just says, "What if we make them say they put the state before God?"
Yeah, and then he's like, "That's a good idea," and he says, "Go talk to the minister of propaganda about that."
He says, "Talk to the minister of propaganda." I also took note of that one.
That was probably my favorite scene in the movie. I think that's probably the best one.
Because that's such a weird one, because that's when you really start to question, like, okay, the train. Sometimes in a low budget movie, when you see like they're using a weird location and an object or a thing gets incorporated, you're like, oh, they found this when they got to this set and thought this was cool, and they were going to incorporate it. But I don't think the train was there,
right.
Which means, I don't think they just wrote the idea of the train and then went out and got a train. I think, like, one of them had a train. Like, one of them had one of the Wesleys just had an antique fucking model train, and somebody was like, oh, we could use that to make this point.
Right.
That's so cool looking, let's put it in the movie. And again, there's no close-up of it or anything either. It's not like a big set piece. It's not like, you have the idea. Again, the rewrite is tyrannical police chief has a room full of oddities. Right, like in fucking The Walking Dead, like the governor, right? He's got a wall full of like jarred heads or whatever. He's got some weird obsession. He goes back into his office and he has all these proclivities and things. And he calls in his subordinate and he tells them to look at it. And it's like, what this reminds me of is this. This is why I keep it around. Yeah, that makes sense. This is just a toy.
This represents history, which is what we're trying to destroy because we're communist.
Yeah. I should mention too. One other weird thing about the train is among the various like companies that purportedly all the Wesleys have started. When you go to their like LinkedIn or their bios on any of their websites, one of them that was started by Joshua was called Car Strike, and a lot of this was in German. And so when I saw that, I was like, maybe that's why he has the train. Maybe he's like weirdly pro-train and anti-car or something.
Oh, that would be an interesting development.
And so I couldn't figure it out, but eventually, like the site for Car Strike is no longer available. So I had to go through, and I eventually found the description of what the company was on his LinkedIn, and it's nothing like that. Car Strike was it says it's an you basically pay to get an hour where you're allowed to like fuck up a car.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be like a fun thing to do with your friends. Like you pay a certain amount of money and you're allowed to just like beat a car with like a baseball bat.
Like those rooms you could go in and with like a sledgehammer and they let you bust up the room.
Yeah. But then I was like, that's why then at the end of the movie and the beginning in the chase sequence, the car he's driving is all fucked up.
Yeah. It's probably one of the Car Strike cars.
Because he probably just, got with his parents' money, was able to like buy a lot of like used cars that were fucked up, and then people would damage them, and then at some point he's like, oh, I could use these in a movie, which isn't a bad idea for a low budget. If you have that as an asset, if you already have a bunch of beat up cars, you could do whatever you want to it.
Yeah.
Which we see in one of the bloopers at the end of the credit sequence. But anyway, back to the movie. The train, Joshua goes back. I forget if there's like another scene with Layla where she's like, don't do it, Joshua.
Well, from the train scene, we go to the hackers like conversion scene, which is one of the most boring scenes of the whole movie. It's just them talking.
They just read straight from the Bible. This is the one too where they slip into German.
Yes.
And our assumption was just like
she was having a hard time, which sucks. Like I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
Then this is the part because I wrote down what they said, that it cuts to another day, and this is when they say we've reached the 1,000 people goal in Asia, and Hannah literally has a paper plate in front of her that she's pretending to write on, and that's how they're calculating who they've reached in Asia. And Hunter looks at the paper plate so like intently, like
Yeah, it was just like a party catering plate upturned. I guess they didn't have a pad, and they were like, "Oh, just write on the plate. That's fine."
Yeah. And then we have the montage with Roy and Layla where he actually confesses his feelings to her, like, directly. And again, it's
very awkward because you also know that they're a couple in real life, and it's very weird.
But like, what's so weird is, like, you know, like, you and I are a couple. Like, if somebody asked us to, like, say that we, like, love each other or whatever, like, you would, even if we're not, like, professional actors, we would, like, know how to do that. But like, the way that they interact is like they've never met before, and somebody told them, like, figure out how to say you like each other.
Well, it's like he has more chemistry with, like, on screen with the character that's supposed to be his sister.
Yes, he really does.
Than he does with her.
Yeah. It's an incredibly long montage is what I wrote down here, and then he says, with Jesus in the center of our relationship, it will last. And she says, I have to go to work.
Yeah. And I think maybe she goes back to work, and that's when maybe that's when Lucas betrays.
Yeah, Lucas, them. It was around this time that Lucas, because I think, and this happened to me too, I think we conflated the scene with Dylan and Lucas coming back. And to be clear, until I just reread my notes, thought this was like the same character, because it's so fucking confusing.
There's no detail to either of them, you know?
But yeah, it was around this time that Luke went to the police station, or that Luke came back to their house, and then he goes to the police station later. But now it cuts to Layla at work, and this is when Lucinda confronts her.
Right.
Yeah.
The daughter confronts her and is like, I know that you've been, like, helping out the Christians. And then the daughter's like, actually, I'm sympathetic because my dad sort of forced me to become, to join the police with him, but I don't want to do that.
Right.
And then she just kind of lets her go.
I mean, it's like you said earlier, right? Like, anytime that a problem is introduced, it gets resolved with one line of dialogue. Right. It's literally what happened once again.
But still, Lucas, like, gives them the names, and it's, it's the 30 pieces of silver scene.
Right, yeah.
It's the,
in exchange for immunity.
Whatever. And then they raid the house.
Oh, but before they do that, they have that, like, fake Zoom meeting projected on the wall. They're doing, like, a secure stream.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. They do their live stream.
They're doing a live stream for all of their new followers around the world. And there's a really funny part where they're, like, setting the stream up. Well, first of all, like we see Roy. First of all, he's, like, standing in this room, and he's the only one there, and he's getting everything set up. And they have what I'm pretty sure on the floor that they end up sitting on in the scene. I'm pretty sure it was just a pallet with like a cushion on top of it.
Yeah.
Cushion on top of it, and then like another maybe pallet behind it or something. But like they're setting up the live stream or something, and then the hacker has a really good bit of dialogue here, because I guess she was the one being the hacker. She was the one who like set up the meeting or whatever. And she says, and this is a direct quote: "I created an online room that is safe, and I will constantly check the connection."
Yeah. I mean, I think this was also the scene because they're in the basement, and they have behind them like draped like a black curtain or something, and the four of them are just like huddled together, like sitting on the floor, and this was the scene where I was like, this dude looks like David Koresh.
Yeah.
It looks like the Waco video, where he takes it, he's like, here are my children. And, he's like sitting with his wives, and they bring like the kids to sit on his lap. It really looked like that.
It's not a good vibe.
Yeah, and then there's like a reverse shot where it's supposed to be like, these are all the people in the Zoom meeting, and again, it's like clearly like you bought a stock video of like a big Zoom meeting.
You could see one of the guys talking, like he's doing a presentation in the projection.
You could see like the person talking in the thing. But yeah, they do like a communion.
It's a whole
thing.
mass.
Really,
it's so long.
Awkwardly drink like wine out of like a mason jar.
It's like white wine.
Yeah.
Which is like not what you use. I'm not sure. It was so clear it almost looked like water.
This was the point in the movie that I wrote down. This is the longest movie I've ever watched. That's what I have in my notes right here.
And it's an hour and a half long, to be clear.
Long movie.
We watched Metropolis like a few weeks ago, and this felt longer than.
Oh my god, it felt so long. Well, we stopped it at 35 minutes in. I thought we were like an hour in already.
It is really unfair to compare it to Metropolis.
Oh yeah.
But what care and attention brought to every set piece in Metropolis. Joshua Wesley is no Fritz Lang.
That's right.
Let's just say that. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, so there's that scene, and then there's the raid, right? Then the raid.
Luke has betrayed them, and then it goes to the raid, and then this is where we get to like the, it's like bookended with like the chase scene
all
from the beginning.
Full circle.
Yeah. So good when you realize the connection.
And a few things occurred to me when we got back to that scene. Is that first of all, that
nothing has happened. Literally nothing has happened.
That whole extended bit at the very beginning where he's like reading from the German Constitution. Again, I figured when we see that for the first time, we're gonna see these moments,
right?
Like, or these are gonna be the values that he cares about later, right? Like, this is like, these particular rights that are gonna be stripped away. That they're never shown in the body of the film at all. He doesn't even talk about them.
Yeah.
We don't have values anymore. The leaders have created a beautiful system, and they dictate the values. It's another line.
And then, so after the interrogation, Lucinda comes out. And remember, Lucinda is the police chief's daughter,
but
who a few scenes before, let go Layla.
That's right.
Because she says, I don't like my dad is forcing me to do this. And so she puts it, they have fucking Joshua Wesley on his knees, execution style. Lucinda brings the gun to his head. And I was like, oh, obviously they're going to do the thing. Lucinda is going to like let him go. Yeah, she's going to turn, she's going to shoot the other guard and be like, you know what, I'm joining your group, right? And that's going to be the culmination, the victory. But much like the 666 movie we watched, where it got to the end, remember, and the girl's like put into like the torture execution device, and we're like, okay, what's the moment of redemption that's gonna happen? And then she just dies and the movie is over. That's what happens.
But
Lucinda just fucking shoots him, and that's the end of the film.
Before anybody gets shot, this is where she starts having flashbacks. As she's pointing the gun at him, she starts flashing back to all these memories that she wasn't there for, and that's where I noticed that they used the actual engagement footage from Joshua and his wife.
Yes. Okay. So
as soon as I saw it, I was like, "That's an engagement video."
Because there was a scene where he like gets on it, like it's like putting the ring on her finger or something.
We looked it up.
Wait a second.
We found the video.
This never happened. Like, why are you?
No, it wasn't in the film.
Met.
It wasn't in the body of the film, but there's like a flashback memory of Josh kneeling to Layla and proposing and putting the ring on her finger. And we joked, we're like, oh, that's probably their actual engagement video. And I looked it up later when I was scoping their thing. It is their engagement video that they posted on YouTube.
And it's basically just a bunch of clips from their YouTube channel that she has flashbacks to, and then it just cuts to black, and we hear two shots.
And we hear the gunshot.
That's the end of the movie. So we don't know who got shot, and then it says special thanks to our Lord Jesus Christ. That's it.
And then there's the series of bloopers.
Yeah.
And one of them, my favorite one, includes so when we see Josh get into the beat up car that he's in at the beginning of the film, then like in the third act, we see him get into the car. He takes like a brick and he smashes the window of the car. And that's when I was like, oh, the car strike thing makes sense, right? Like he had the service. He had cars that he could beat up because he actually breaks the car window, right? Which is something that, again, in a low budget movie, you don't often see because you don't want to break your mom's car if you're using it.
Of course.
Right? But he actually breaks it. And in the bloopers, it shows him being fucking unable to break the car with like a giant brick. But, yeah, and then the rest of the other bloopers, again, are just kind of like, they reminded me of when I was 16 and 17 years old, making my first movies with my friends, and, we have all these outtakes that we think are so hilarious, and then when you watch them later, you realize it's just you and your 16-year-old friends going like, huh? What? And that's how the movie plays out.
I did feel bad when you started playing. I forget what his name is. Let me look at the IMDb. You were like, watch
Kobe
Gilliard.
Something.
Kobe Gilliard. Yeah. You were like showing like the making of behind the scenes from like his YouTube channel, and I did start to like feel bad because he's like so excited to be doing a movie. Yeah. But
here let's watch some of it right now, shall we? Give me screen share.
And of course, this movie ends with him being shot in the head, because it's like being like this kind of Christian movie. It's like they just have to have that like persecution, that like martyrdom type thing. And that's what they're going for. They can't have an optimistic, hopeful ending. It has to be. They have to like be able to stew in how persecuted they feel afterwards.
The same thing happened in the 666 movie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty. Did Hunter Wilde end with Hunter Wilde dying?
I don't remember at all.
I know he has like the big mind matrix battle with Mammon. I remember that, and they're all like holding his body and shit. But I can't remember. I think he might just die at the end still. But yeah, like you said, Chris, it's the culmination of like narratively, it doesn't even make any sense. Again, what would narratively make sense is that's when Lucinda turns, and is like, okay, let's get out of here. Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship, and they walk together to reform the Christian resistance movement. Like that's how the movie should end, but instead, of course, it has to end this way.
I was just looking up like pictures to see what we could use for cover art. Look at the back cover of like the DVD. It's the cop with like the tape over the word campus on the campus police thing. I think that should be the episid art, just zoomed in on the cop. Yeah.
With his eyes closed.
Yeah,
mid blink. Cool. Yeah, that was I
do really like the glamour picture though of Joshua on the cover of this with like the fucking Knights Templar signet ring and the David Koresh glasses, holding up the mask in his hands, with like what is obviously just like again stock images of like SWAT guys and stuff. Nobody in the movie looks like that.
I did give you screen sharing, by the way.
Oh, okay, yeah. Here, let's watch like the first minute of this.
Oh man, what a fun time.
Okay.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to our new video. I'm Kobe, where I'm actually gonna take you behind the scenes and kind of show you around a little of the new movie we're working on. It's gonna be fun, so stay tuned.
So, we are here, our first filming location on our first filming day. We were here yesterday to set up. As you can tell, I got some stuff back here to help with the setup a little bit. So we will see how it goes. I'm really looking forward to it. It's gonna be a good day. To kind of show you, you really can't tell what this is or anything, but
yeah, oh my
God. It looks like a kennel.
So we are here. Here is Josh. Hello. And Simon. Behind my head, there he is. Yeah. So we're here on the set. And we've set this up. We're still a lot to set up, but our interrogation room is set up. This room is primarily set up. Yeah, we need some black sheets on the top of the table. We need a lot of lights. My cousin is gonna come with a lot of lights.
His cousin is gonna come with lights.
So we found some fog machines, some everything. So we're really looking forward to it.
I'm gonna pause it.
Was that the mouse? Was that the computer with the mouse?
Yeah, that was just Josh hanging out at one of the little tables they set up, really excited and happy, like blasting away to his music or whatever. And it just looks so bad. Yeah. It's again, there's an element of it where you feel a little bit bad. And I don't want to make fun of like kids trying to put together a production.
No.
But what elevates it out of that is like, first of all, the main guy is in his mid-20s.
He's like 25, yeah.
So it's not exactly, even though a lot of the people working on it are teenagers, it's not like a high school movie.
It's more like a Neil Breen a little bit better situation.
Yeah, it's the delusional quality of the aggrandizement and the martyrdom, and then the mixture of all the weird reactionary politics stuff, which again, what is so interesting about it in this film is that it's so vague.
Yeah.
And it speaks to how the people who think in these terms often do not even have any of it mapped out.
Right.
It's just like a vague notion that the government is tyrannical and therefore that equals communism, without even like the demonic propaganda version of communism in their heads. It's just like communism is evil. That's it. Like that's the full extent of it. And their tyranny is us not being able to go to restaurants, or as he also says, like remember ice cream at one point in the movie.
Yeah, a world full
so
of
I
peace,
guess,
love, and ice cream is what they took from us, I think is the line.
Yeah. This is what they took from us.
Oh.
So
yeah,
that's that.
Yeah.
It's I don't. What would you recommend it?
I give it 2 sprayed fishes out of 5.
I'd give it 1/2 of one fish.
So
just
else
the first
can
line.
it.
Somebody else can come in. I mean, this it's free in a lot of places.
It's
online.
on Tubi.
It's on Tubi. So if you really have nothing better to do with your life,
if you're like us. I'd watch another movie like this. I think it's
I would watch more that they put out. I tried to watch some of their YouTube, but again, most of it, is in German, so it's pretty hard to get. But I am curious about it because the parents involved, they have this like app and they have all this like lifestyle stuff. It sort of reminded me of what is it called in the evangelical American tradition, where it's like it's like send money for
prosperity
prayers.
Gospel shit.
Yeah. It kind of has that sort of vibe, but in a more like 21st century huckster fucking web gimmick way. Pray your way to success in business kind
I
of
bet
stuff.
they're into NFTs.
Yeah, for sure. If they could figure it out, I guess they'll have to get a hacker who knows that kind of stuff.
Well, they know one.
Chris, would you recommend this movie to our listeners?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I hate them.
I mean, it's a slog. It's boring. It's. I mean, It's,
if you like bad movies.
Yeah, if you like bad movies, but if you're looking for like a real good like right wing fever dream movie, there are better ones.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we need to get back to at some point, and hopefully they make another movie, is the team that put Amerigeddon together.
Yeah.
Just that combination of Mike Norris and then the Gary Heaven guy with his like fucking helicopters and shit. Because that movie had helicopters in it.
Yeah.
It had an actual helicopter
The
fight.
production value was just like way better.
Because it was financed by an insane billionaire.
Yes.
With a ranch and like multiple Faraday cages and like an arsenal.
Yeah.
That's what these guys need. Give the Wesley Bros an
Give
arsenal.
them guns.
And maybe give them the compound in Texas. And if Gary Heavens isn't available, see if the property at Waco is up for sale. Well, that's it then, folks.
That's all she wrote.
And to play us out, Amazing Grace.
The cool version.
the stay cool version.
Who see him as a hero? Well, he's a follower of life. Without him, there's no grace, there's no truth, there's no hope for me or you. He's a straight arrow. He will enable you to step into the water, step out in the faith and never look back until tomorrow. No worries, even though you may fear. When you don't know where to go, you lose your way. Just know that he is near. You're never too far away from grace. The run from the past, and getting the shame, all of it he will erase. It will be gone and never again when you have to worry about being loved. How sweet the sound, he calls you his beloved. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Chains are falling, hitting the ground like flesh and blood. Freedom you want it right now, take it right in the wave of the flood. The skin tone, the body art, the way you dress. Are you smart? None of it matters as come as you are. You good as you is. Know what the